With the name of Lord, the most gracious, the most merciful, we start this. Ziad and I are here talking to you again. There's a lot happening. Middle East is on fire right now. Palestine and Israel, they are in an active act of war. Too much has happened inside that region and outside that region, in the peripheries, in the neighborhood, as well as in the world. The whole world gets affected by Middle East. Somehow has been a source of all sorts of conflicts and wars, and it's just never ending there. So Ziad and I are going to talk about from our perspective, how do we see it and what's going to happen next. Ziad, thank you very much for joining me. Okay, so it's a lot happening in Palestine. What do you say?
Yes, the recent attacks that were carried out by Hamas, of course, nobody in the world supports those attacks by Hamas. As there were some civilian casualties as well. But I mean, when you hear about the Palestinian authorities and leaders, they've completely sort of disconnected themselves from Hamas, and they've said that this was something that was cleanly planned by Hamas on its own, and it has nothing to do with the Palestinians. So the one thing that is really hurting me the most, considering the gravity of the situation right now in Palestine and Israel, is that there are some very radical statements being issued by public office holders in the US. Some are just saying that, this is attack on Israel is an attack on the United States. And, some are even saying that, they've issued statements like completely wiping out the Palestinian population and stuff. So being a public office holder for a nation that is seen as a model of, is seen as a model for humanity and democracy around the world, you should be carefully weighing in your words before you say anything about such a situation. So the thing is, for instance, Nikki Haley, she issued a statement that this is outright an attack on America. How can you come in and say this? Where America has its own internal problems and issues, national issues, and then you're coming out and saying, issuing such strong statements that this is an outright attack on America, whereas this is clearly not an attack on America. This is a matter of Palestine and Israel that's been going on for decades. Now, one thing that really hurts me the most is because just because this attack was planned by Hamas, now the Palestinian lives and innocent children and women, they have to pay the price for it. And there's like non-stop carpet bombing that's taking place on the Gaza Strip, and I fear that the Palestinian population will be outright wiped out after this event. Now, what really is concerning me the most is how will the world leaders tackle this, rather than this just going on with their rhetoric that it's Israel has the right to defend itself. Of course, Israel has the right to defend itself. So do the Palestinians. Every other nationality or nation in the world have the right to defend themselves. But we also need to look at what part we have played as as United States. Everybody sees us as the beacon of hope around the world, right? So what part have we played on this ongoing crisis where there's encroachment from Israel's side that has been increasing over the years, and Gaza Strip has been turned into an open air prison, and since 16 years it has gotten worse and worse by the day, and that Strip is nothing but an open air prison, and everything, even the breath that a child takes is monitored by the security forces of Israel. Now, my first thing is, how come this hollow was created when this is this is a big security lapse? I mean, when you are constantly monitoring this strip of people that are completely harmless, that only pelt stones at you at the most. How come you let this happen under your nose? That's one of the biggest questions that people are asking after these attacks happen. Now, the other thing that is coming to my mind is what is going to happen? What will be the implications? How will this fall out? And how it's going to affect some of the future developments that were taking place in the Middle East. Like, for instance, there was recognition, there was a question of, and there were also talks being held between Saudi Arabia, Israel, and some other OPEC nations of recognizing Israel as a neighbor, and giving it full status of a country. So how this event is going to change the dynamics of what was going to happen in the future, and what will be the impact in that specific region. I will pass this over to you, sir. Thank you.
Ziad, we have heard the phrase that in war, the first casualty is truth. Truth dies first, because it is very difficult. In this age of information, we call it information age, which means we have abundant information, which comes from all the sources. We talk about social media, we talk about digital media, we talk about democratization of news and media. All of this is happening in these times. Before that, the way war reporting used to work is every party involved would install their favorite or their, journalists or reporters into the zones. And then they will, obviously, when you are working with or for someone, you're bound to project their point of view. Now, you may have seen that picture where, you see a close-up and it looks like one person is about to stab another person and the other person is escaping from that. It's a shadow. But when you zoom out and see from far, it looks like the person who seemed like stabbing is actually saving himself from the other person. It's a very famous image. If you Google it, you will find it there. So my point here is that when you go too close and you see, oh my God, there's a rocket going on from this side to that side. But when you zoom out and you see, okay, things may seem very, very different. And that's what I want to focus on now. So when you see things closely, they seem totally different than when you zoom out and see the bigger picture. Now, no war starts instantly. It doesn't happen that you are, going happily, perfectly fine, and you get into an argument and then you start a war. It happens between people when they get into that. They may fight, but not in countries or not in armies. The war does not happen instantly. Some people even say that peace is a, time between two wars. Like wars to them are a bigger reality, and peace just is a pause time between that. So now coming to this war that has started, it's very, very tragic, and it's going to have very, very long-lasting effects. Whenever there is an activity, or there is an adverse anything going on, we see that, okay, who controls things and who will be the beneficiary of this? That's how you know that, okay, what could be the motives behind it? Who could start it? Because, as I said, you cannot tell everything that you are hearing has any basis. Is it, we say truth and lies and all that. Truths and lies are very different for different people. One person's truth can be another person's, picnic. You don't know that. Facts are the only thing that matters. For example, I was reading this article. It said that this defense dome intercepted thousands of Hamas missiles. Now, think about this. Thousands of missiles. They don't just, come from thin air. They were collected, transported, stored, and you need like a huge base. You need space, you need guns to fire those missiles, right? Now, if you think about the war on terror, which went on in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Pakistan was a large victim for that for a long time, thousands of drone attacks. Those drones were supposedly, that's what we were told, they were controlled from here, different forts in United States. They remotely were, triggered, and they would go and attack a tiny village where few people live, and they find a terrorist there, and they would, exterminate that. Thousands of missiles lie in a very, very sensitive, almost all the time active war zone, stored there, transported there, moved there, and we did not know. Nobody knew that. I mean, in this, when you're using GPS, an ordinary person, and you move from there and there is a change in the road, the GPS instantly knows that. How does that information get there? Remote sensing, satellite monitoring, there's so much going on. So I, as a sane, intelligent person, question these things. I don't know. I'm not saying who is, false or who is correct in this or right or wrong. Because we hear this thing from somebody else. Now, where does the information come from? Who controls the media? That's what should tell you the bulk of information comes from that. And 97% people in any society, any nation, if not 97, definitely 95% people are very lazy, indifferent, not interested. They just hear something and then they make it their religion. They just believe that, oh, I heard this, so that must be this. That's why euphemisms are so important. If you use word terrorist for a certain group, people start believing that's a terrorist group. It could be freedom fighters. It depends on whose perspective you're looking at from. When you use defense forces, it seems like they're defending themselves. But when you are occupying somebody's territory and you are kicking them out and you're killing them and you're pushing them and you are, creating very, very frequent blockades against them, you could possibly not be defending yourself against them. I'm just raising questions. You are, as a citizen, you're allowed to ask questions. We don't know who's defending and who is attacking, who's the aggressor. A person comes and tells us that, oh, one group attacked a country, and the country is innocent civilians and they're getting killed, and then carpet bombing is going on, and that country has a very, very huge army, and they have, US support, and they have, amassed weaponry like nobody else. They have capability to produce it in-house. They're carpet bombing the other party, which is an aggressor, an attacker, and they are defenders. You're carpet bombing somebody and you are still innocent as you are defending yourself, and you're mourning your civilians while, exterminating other civilians and other kids and women. To me, all civilians, all unarmed people, all women, children, elderly, sick people are, innocent, and they must be defended and they must be protected in any act of war. Some people do, most people don't care. Who benefits from a war generally? If we start answering these questions, it requires a little bit of critical thinking and logical reasoning, not much. Who benefits from a war? Who controls media and spreads the information that gets to us? Who curbs all these independent sources of news? Who all the time, brings false charges against them, make them run, start a witch hunt against them, and make them ineffective? Who does that? So these are few things I want our audience and people who have sanity and who can who have some conscience, reason, and logic, they should think about these things, that the information that is coming to us from official sources, whatever Biden administration is telling us about this war, we should think that who is the victim, who is the aggressor, who is defending themselves, whose land is being snatched away from them on one pretext or another. It is a war crime to have a mass blockade against civilian population in an act of war crime. Who is committing that war crime? How can you blockade a whole region which you have been working to take over, occupy, and push the native population out of that region? I'll take you to 1960s Cuban Missile Crisis, Cold War era. President was John F. Kennedy. Military general proposes to him to deal with Cuban Missile Crisis that we should do a false flag operation on one of our national monuments, blame Cuba, and then attack Cuba on that pretext. And of course, Cuba is a minuscule, tiny mouse as compared to the huge, big elephant right next door called United States. United States could exterminate Cuba in no time. It didn't, because we thrive in that environment of fear and scare. The more you keep your people ignorant, misinformed, scared, the more they will listen to you. The more you come out as a savior and as a leader and as their messiah, the more they will follow you. So that's what our politicians do. That's our vested interest groups do. So Kennedy fired that general. He didn't buy that idea. But we have seen that in many countries in the world. I'm not going to name those, that's out of the context of this conversation that we are having. But we saw that exact same false flag operation conducted in many countries. Very recently, you saw that happening in Pakistan to curb a certain political party. So this happens. Did Hamas start this war? Did Hamas not start this war? Who created Hamas and who feeds Hamas? Whose purpose Hamas is serving? All these things, it gives a very, very popular and sellable rhetoric to our politicians, like what you said, Nikki Haley said. And they have been saying it for a long time. John McCain, he used to be the biggest warmonger in this country. His solution to everything was bomb, bomb, bomb. Wherever he goes, he would want to bomb that. Especially if it was a Muslim country, it was his favorite bombing. And yet Muslims believe that, Republicans will help us, Democrats will not. They're all the same. When it comes to dollar, they're all sold. Okay? Exceptions, of course, there are exceptions. I wouldn't say all of them, but what I mean is all bigger groups which are vested interest, they're involved into this thing. So extreme fringes exist everywhere. Nikki Haley is an extreme fringe group person. Nobody listens to her. Nobody cares about her. So she's just, seeking some importance. She's like a candidate in this election. So she'll probably get some vote by saying this because it's a popular narrative. That's what they're doing. It's not going to happen. The United States had a deal with Iran, which these warmonger groups, worked very hard to sabotage that deal. Trump administration didn't bow to their, and they didn't start a war. But as soon as this Biden administration came in, we see war after war erupting. There is a method to this madness. What is that method? Why did we see wars escalate? Same people, same Iran, same Palestine, same Israel, same North Korea, same Hamas, same Pakistan, same Afghanistan, same Muslim countries. Even though Trump, as soon as he came, he said some very, foul things about Muslims and Muslim countries or developed countries, Mexico, and all that. But he de-escalated wars. Same people did not go to war. They did not attack. They did not do anything. As soon as Biden administration takes over, we see war after war erupting. Why is that? Why all these people became so aggressive all of a sudden? Before Biden, who was the most warmongering president?
George Bush?
No, it's not. George Bush did a lot of started war and all that. It was in line with the other presidents. It was Obama.
You're right.
And Hillary Clinton. Most weapons sold in US history were at the time when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. Most bombs, drones attacked Pakistan when Hillary Clinton and Obama were a team. So you would think that, they're not usual suspects, but they are. They're all in the same game. Obama rises from nowhere to stardom and he becomes US president and stays 2 terms president. Why? He did nothing for people. Trump did not last, So anyway, my point is, I'm closing this argument, giving you bigger picture. Whatever is happening in the war, you get it from news, from independent sources. My request to you is that follow independent sources, not corporate media, not state media, not these authentic left or right or, whatever sells. You need to see who controls media in this country, who controls financial institutions, and who controls educational institutions. Education, finance, and media. Whoever controls that, they give you the information that they want to give you. You know only what they want to tell you. You get to use the money that they allow you to use. This is how it works. Which groups are some of the most powerful groups who lobby, who do activism, who spread information, who influence people? Who are those? Are those Palestinians? Are those Hamas? Who are they? Are those, certain groups which favor Israel? Abrahamic religion are based on a certain tradition and a certain set of values and principles. Okay? Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all of them have a common denominator. It's a value system where humans are important and your values, your honesty, your quest or your endeavor to protect other humans and make human lives better is at the core of these religions. But a certain group has been condemned and has been, doing all sorts of things throughout the history. It's not now. There was a time when all Palestinians lived there, and this was land of Palestinians. Okay? When some people bring this argument that, Israel was the clan of Israel and all those, that they were Palestinians. They lived in that region. So they were all together. And when Islam, started, many of them became Muslims. They were all still Palestinian. They lived there. Nobody asked them to leave. Nobody asked them to start another state within that state. Nobody asked them to, nobody occupied their lands and kicked them out of their native places and forced them or made them human targets or started dehumanizing them. When you do it to the same people in the same family and some become aggressors and some become, aggressed or oppressed people, then this is what happens. And then there are groups that benefit from it. Who becomes a victim? The rest of the world. Now I'll give you a quick glimpse of what has been happening in that region and why this war could be a result of all that happened. Now you saw that when Biden took over, Biden said some very, harsh and harmful things about the Saudi prince, who's the de facto ruler of Saudi Arabia. So naturally, as soon as he got hold of the kingdom, he started looking for other opportunities and other alliances. And since they have a large oil production, that affects America is one of the largest oil consumers. So it affects that. Biden administration did not care about that. They were so unscrupulous about it. Everybody else had great relations with Saudi Arabia. Biden started it on a very, very, bad note. So Saudi prince started looking toward China. He wanted to become part of BRICS. He looked at other alliances and he controlled oil production. So Biden had to go and beg for more oil, which he may have gotten some, but then again, so somehow they kept working. They realized they probably or not, I don't know, this administration is just gone crazy from very beginning. So Saudi Arabia, Israel, United States, they were working to, cozy up in that region, and they were tagging along Pakistan. And Pakistan is one of the few countries that do not, recognize Israel as a sovereign country. So they were forcing an ouster of Prime Minister Imran Khan from Pakistan and installing a military general there in a covert, kind of sham democracy, which is also a byproduct of Biden administration, is part of all this bigger game. So that's what was happening. It means then when the regional powers and the global powers align and are ready to crush a certain people out of their basic human rights, bare basic human rights, like the right to exist. We're not talking about life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, just the life part of it. Mm-hmm. No liberty, no pursuit of happiness, just the life. If you're going to attack even that, what do you think they're going to do? I just want you to think about it. You don't have to answer to me or anybody else. Just think about it. So all I'm requesting is a broader, different, open-minded perspective of this war. So you can see for yourself who are the beneficiaries of this crime, who could have instigated this, who will benefit that. This blockade, who will this blockade benefit? Will it benefit Palestinians that they started firing rockets for no provocation, no reason? It's like exact same narrative that this administration fed on Ukrainian war. They said unprovoked, Russian attack, Ukraine victim. That's what they did. Even though Russia was warning and telling Ukraine not to do this for 20 years, and they installed this joker, Zelensky, to do all these things that he's doing. But still Russia is the attacker and Russia is the aggressor. Likewise, this has been going on in this region for a very, very long time in the Middle Eastern region. So if you open your eyes, if you open your mind, if you do a little bit of a diligence, you will instantly know that this is the case. Now, what is going to happen? There will be a cautious, they will step back. Saudi Arabia, America, and Israel will probably step back, at least on the surface, and they will not cozy up as rapidly as they were doing that. Now, Biden administration is in the election year, and there is no performance to show except for they will escalate wars and they'll create this. And same is for Netanyahu. He started their judicial reforms, which were very, very seriously opposed and resisted from within the country. So this is a great opportunity for him to, quash all those people and win elections again. And for Biden here, I don't know if he wins election, it's far, but this is the only thing they will take to people. And they are, they're like making statements like they're in bed with Israel. I mean, I was reading somebody's statement. He said, like, basic human rights, civilian casualties. Can you talk about that? But please take care of civilians. Please don't kill civilians. A big, broad-based blockade will kill millions of people, as it did in Iraq, as it did in Iran, as it did in Afghanistan, Pakistan. So who is this war going to benefit, and what will happen later? This war will have its impact for a long, long time. They may drag other countries into it. If you remember, last thing, if you remember the 1980 elections when Jimmy Carter was president, one-term president, and he was a very thorough gentleman. I mean, given all the presidency limitations and challenges, he was. But the Iranian hostage crisis happened, and Reagan had won the election. Carter could not resolve that election because Republicans approached Iranians and they told them to not resolve this issue until the elections so they can win elections. So you can go this far to win elections. I'm just giving you thought, you just think that what could possibly be the reason for Palestinians who can't make their both ends meet? There is no medical for them. There is no hope. There is no future. Why will they have thousands of rockets, and how will they fire thousands of rockets on a country that is like extremely powerful army and extremely weaponized, and who's being dehumanized, you know? So are we going to entertain these fringe, radical, fundamentalist politicians like Nikki Haley in this election? Or American people will show their, you know, the bravery, the life, the liberty, and the pursuit of happiness that they always held up? Will they bring people who curb these wars and who care for human rights, human lives, and human values anywhere, whether it's Israel, it's Palestine, it's Middle East, it's Pakistan, it's anywhere else? Now, today, if you see America declared Niger as a coup against people, and they have, you know, started putting sanctions on them because that's not their, you know, favorite coup. It favors somebody else. So when it favors you, you go all the way and you support them like they're doing in Pakistan. When it doesn't favor you, because Pakistan army is providing weapons and ammunition on their behalf to Ukrainians to fight with Russia. So they're supporting them wholeheartedly, no matter what atrocities, human rights violations are being committed. The most popular and most, you know, vocal, brave leader is put behind the bar indefinitely on one pretext or another. And then on the other hand, when it doesn't favor you, like in Niger, you go ahead and you start sanctions and blockade and, you know, you condemnation of that, all of that. So it is for people to think which direction we want our politicians to go, our government to go, what policies do we want to do? Does, you know, unconditionally loving and supporting Israel help American people? Does it warrant that our hard-earned tax money go to Israel? If you're happy with it, please go on, bring Nikki Haley, bring Biden back, bring all those people who are warmongers who benefit from war, and continue to live this and be hypocrite about life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. If it doesn't, then support those people who stand up for human rights, who speak up, who say things for, and human rights are human rights. Israelis are humans, they deserve human rights. Palestinians are humans, they deserve human rights. Pakistanis are human, they deserve human rights. So all of those humans, innocent civilians, unarmed people who do not have any part to play. Don't squash them, don't kill them, don't murder those people in pretext of war and in occupying their land. So for you to think, give us your feedback, tell us how you feel, share your comments and sentiments with us. We greatly value that. It helps us in becoming better people. Thank you very much, Ziad, for joining, and we will see you next time. No matter how you see American people in different countries, they're seen differently. When I was in Pakistan before coming to America, I used to think everybody in America is sitting like this, thinking how to destroy Pakistan, because that's how we were fed. Our politicians, they used to blame everything on America. And when I came here, I realized that most people don't even know if Pakistan existed, and they didn't care. American exceptionalism is so far above everything that the Americans don't care about anything that doesn't directly concern them. So they don't destroy it. American people are big-hearted. They are very welcoming. They're very hardworking people, and they're not against anyone. That separates American people from American administrations. If you see, when Bush was all out to start this war after 9/11 happened, without any fair trial, without seeking justice, without finding out who was responsible, he was all out to go after Iraq and Afghanistan and start this war, because war makes money. So he wanted to do that. And a lot of money was made. Dick Cheney's company, Bush's company, they all made tons of money, like millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. So people came out, little kids, college kids, in cold freezing winter days, they gather in millions everywhere. They marched against war. They had nothing to do. They could stay in their cozy homes. They had nothing to do with Iraqi people or Afghan people, but they stood up for justice, for human rights, and for peace. That's the spirit of American people. When they realize that's what they do. And right now, I expect them to stand up for human rights are at stake, peace is at stake, justice is at stake. And we are being painted a very, very unfair, one-sided, and misinformed picture. We should not be fooled by that. We should stand up for oppressed, not for oppressor. Defenders, not attackers. And we need to see who is the defender and who is the attacker. Army of millions, which is supported by billions of US tax dollars, or people who are struggling to barely survive. They may have food at times and they may not even have food at times. So it's for American people to think. Life, liberty, in pursuit of happiness is at stake. So come on, American people, think. Sayed, you have this historic perspective. And how do you see American people and how do they respond? And what is the difference between America, when we say America did this, and American people?
So when it comes to American people, right, the whole concept of America, the whole, it's such a big, larger than life concept of just America itself, the people, the nation. And I'm specifically talking about the American people here, the magnanimous nature, the inclusive nature of the culture itself, the way America has evolved over the years. I think it's, and like you mentioned, American people are very enlightened people, but unfortunately, the media houses, everything that you see on TV is all controlled. It's all, it's all driving the interest of these nice, shimmering offices that you see outside in Pentagon City, these that are driven by war. So I have true belief that American people, once they stand up for something that is right, they go all in on that. If you recall what happened during the Vietnam War and how people marched on the streets and how they protested outside Pentagon to say no to war, enough is enough. We want no more war. So that shows how emotional, how connected to humanitarianism the American people are, and naturally. So coming back to your point, the whole world is looking at American people, and I hope they will stand against this war in Israel, war anywhere in the world. You can never have peace with war, by raising guns. So I truly believe that once the American nation takes a stand against something that is wrong, they make it right, and they have the power and they have the voice to do that. And the whole world is seeing that, looking at them, they are seeing them as the big, the father or this fatherly figure in the whole world, that they will say no to this war in Israel, because we need to see that Israel has declared a clear-cut war on Palestine, and it's not the fault of Palestinian people. It's Hamas who's to be solely blamed. They can carry this out through intelligence crackdown and try to track down these militants that came into Israel, rather than carpet bombing and completely wiping out the Palestinians. So this is my urge, this is my urge, and it is my request that all American people, they stand up against war anywhere in the world. Thank you.